Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Debrief, brought to you in partnership between British Rowing and Junior Rowing News. My name is Fergus Mainland, host of the End of the Island podcast, and this morning I'm delighted to be joined by an esteemed panel for what is a golden morning for the GB Para Rowing team. I'm joined by Tom Aggar and Naomi Riches, two Paralympic champions, Annamarie Phelps, the Olympian, the Vice Chair of the British Olympic Association and the former Chair of British Rowing and the British Para Association, and Martin Gough, rowing journalist and veteran of the Debrief. And we're going to run through all the action, all the A finals we've had out in Tokyo. And we'll start with the races that had GB crews in them. We had 2 gold medals and a 5th place performance to dissect. And Martin, if we start with that 5th place performance first for Ben Pritchard in the PR1 men's single, the Welsh Dragon, as he has been branded. A really tough race for Ben, coming in 5th place, not the race he wanted, but he's had a really successful Paralympic campaign so far.
Yeah, it was great to hear him say that he will look to be back in Paris in 3 years' time with lessons from this regatta, and it's really been a learning process, this regatta. It's important to think he didn't make his international debut until 2019. And he's really moved on as this regatta's gone on. His repechage yesterday was probably his best race. He said this morning that with his disability, he struggles to get lever in the headwind, and I think that was why he got dropped off the start. Through the middle of the race, he was of similar speed to that sort of podium pack, and then his sprint really closed the gap at the end. But he ran out of track. Maybe if it had been a 3K race, he would have got in there. But all really useful learning experience for him.
And Tom, I think despite coming 5th in the A final, he still set the Paralympic best time in his repechage yesterday. So it's a hugely promising result for Ben.
Yeah, absolutely. I know Ben will be disappointed in some ways, but he's got so much to be proud of. I think the season that he's had, if you look at his in the Europeans in Varese, he was behind Polyansky, but it was pretty much the same sort of cruising speed during the middle of the race. And as Martin said, today he did look like he got dropped off the start there a little bit, but just been able to kind of claw his way back through the field slightly and hang on to those top guys. He's not far off the podium, and with a bit of work and his eyes set on Paris, I know he'll be throwing everything into making sure he gets back up to that sort of podium position for Paris.
I think it's really interesting to see how our 3 crews have, their different experience, how it's led to the sort of consistency or not consistency in terms of the way they're racing. And I think for Ben, with so little experience actually in real life racing relatively to the other 2 crews, he's still experimenting. So every race for him is a learning. And I think going through the repechage was actually the right thing for him at the stage that he's at. Probably he needs those extra races with that pressure. There's no way that you can fast track that experience in a training environment. So you really do have to have that sort of that behind you. And you see that with people like Scarston and things coming through in the women's single as well. That he's got that now, and hopefully that will really be another sort of tool for him as he heads into the next 3 years up to Paris.
Absolutely echo what Annamarie said, in fact what all of you have said, but it's his 3rd international competition and it's the Paralympic Games. That's enormous, and what he will learn from experience. But his work ethic is phenomenal, as with the rest of the crews, and the support they show each other. I think that's something that's come through loud and clear in everything that they've said, is the support they have within the 13 people that were there in Tokyo, from manager right the way through all the crews, and the coaches and physio. So I think that the support network's there. He's got an awful lot to build on. He's got so much potential, and it's really exciting. Whatever's going to happen in 3 years' time is going to be very exciting.
I think, Tom, it's worth noting as well, Roman Polyansky, the gold medalist, he's now the defending champion. He's retained his title, but I think it's also worth a word for Eric Horry from Australia, the first man to to ever win 3 para rowing medals, another phenomenal achievement in this field.
Yes, absolutely incredible for Eric. You know, a few doubts that he might have looked a little bit off the pace coming into this regatta, but he showed, you know, he's well within the pack there and managed to sort of really show his experience and pedigree in this event and pull through to clinch that silver. Again, obviously silver in London, silver in Rio, and silver this time around. I'm sure he's, you know, got his eyes set on the gold, but I think as a sort of a set of medals and to be that consistent across that many events, it's, you know, it's an incredible achievement to him, and he should be, you know, really, really proud.
Well, I think as Catherine Granger will tell him, winning 3 medals doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to win the gold. I think for him, that's maybe a sign that there is something golden to come in Paris in 3 years' time. But I think, Martin, if we turn our attention now to the women's PR1 single scull, we haven't had a GB entry in it. So we've got a new change in the guard. Rachel Morris won back in 2016, but this year it was Bridget Skarsten from Norway who took the gold medal and is now the Olympic champion. Yeah,
I was expecting a far closer race than we saw. The Israeli sculler was fastest in the heats. I know there was a bit of an issue with her chair, and she was relegated from the heats and went through the repechage. But I expected a really sort of a real battle for that. But Skarsten was, I mean, so long in the boat, and just you know, you sort of turned around off the start, and she got a length or so straight off the start, and just pressed it from there. So that's her 4th world title. She was 4th in Rio. So yeah, it's a similar story to Emma Twigg, really, in the Olympic single. Somebody who's been there and won it, but never not won it at the Olympic Paralympic stage. So great that she could tick it off. If you haven't seen the footage of her on YouTube in the Norwegian version of Strictly Come Dancing, that's really worth a watch as well. That's quite something.
She is a complete superstar for Paralympic rowing, I think. I watched her in Pyeongchang at the Winter Olympics competing in the cross country, and she's an incredible athlete, and her endurance is amazing. So you know, I think she's made for this, and I keep forgetting, at least, this is the first time that we've raced at 2,000 meters at the Paralympic Games. So we're seeing really different races compared to Rachel in Rio, where she was able to use that incredible turn of speed she had in the last 250 meters at these games with this 2,000 meters, especially in the small boats. So it's a really different sort of tactical race, I think. And just getting out and slowly edging ahead is really important. And Skarsten can do that with her fitness and her endurance.
I remember, Naomi, when we were previewing the Paralympic Games with Tom, I asked him whether or not he would have favoured the 1,000 or the 2,000 metres. And I ask you the same question now. Do you think racing 2,000 metres back when you won your Olympic gold would have altered the training, or would have altered your race plan at all leading into the competition?
I think it would have altered a lot of things. It's a very, very different, very different beast, the 1,000 versus the 2,000. And the idea of racing over 2K, when having come into rowing in 2004 and only training on a 1K program, the occasional 2K test thrown in for just to see where you are, I think it would have been incredibly different. But at the same time, I think the theme that runs through in terms of the work ethic and the program and the way it works and the way it's structured, I think that's always remained the same, but there might have been a tweak on the actual length of sessions and the volume that you were doing. But I liked the 1K. Being in club rowing now, I quite enjoy the 2K. Don't tell my coach I just said that, actually. But yeah, it would have been very, very different.
Can I ask Tom what the difference for these single scullers? There's obviously been a change in the rules on the strapping and the amount that they use their trunk, and that was most obvious for Skarsten, who's really got a long stroke using a lot of her upper body. How much of a difference do you think that makes to it?
Yeah, definitely. The event sort of visually looks quite different now to Rio. I think the FISA made a ruling in 2017 where they changed the strapping regulations. I think they kept the classification broadly the same, but changed the strapping regulations. So you'll see the athletes with a sort of a trunk strap, which is now they can pretty much put where they like. Which means the athletes that have got that sort of slightly maybe superior trunk function with the right sort of setup and seating that can really maximize that sort of trunk function they've got and really use that to really lever the boat through the water. And you can see Scarstein, incredible athlete, but she's able to really put that to good use, and she's got, you know, such huge distance per stroke, combined with her fitness and, you know, natural levers. He's very tall, very strong. But yeah, you see that across quite a few of the athletes now. They've got, you know, very different setups, and it, you know, for an event it looks visually quite different, where they're really looking in some ways quite close to P2 in terms of their function for some of the athletes, and as a result we're seeing, you know, quicker times that have really tumbled since sort of Rio and beyond. So I think, you know, those athletes that are looking to try and make big jumps, that's where they're going to be able to make those jumps. And you'll see Samuel Moran, you know, obviously trying to do that this year, coming in with a slightly innovative seat design where she's trying to really maximize, you know, whatever trunk function she's got in line with the event and the way it's moving.
It's quite a difficult one, isn't it, Tom? Because it does mean that those athletes with a bit more, you know, movement or a bit more sort of ability in their trunk are advantaged, whereas previously it sort of brought everybody to a level, and it meant that people with a more severe disability almost could compete sort of, you know, in a competitive way, and this has opened it out. So it's meant that there are probably, you know, a broader range of people that can be competitive in that, but it equally then disadvantages some of those with the most severe impairment, which is, you know, it's a real balancing act at Paralympic Games to have that range of impairment types.
Yes, it's a real balancing act, and I think everyone forgets there are only 3 categories in rowing, and the PR1 category, you know, just from personal experience and living the event for so long, you know, I've seen so many athletes that have, you know, have quite a range of disabilities, and some, you know, inevitably towards the top of the event are the most sort of able in some instances. But, you know, it's such a difficult act, difficult thing to do, to try and get everyone in the same category and have the same setup, because ultimately everyone's trying to use every advantage they can to go as quick as they can. And you know, and yeah, Rio, they had quite stringent strapping. I remember from London, I think, you know, one of the biggest fears I had in London, they were very, very hot on strapping and were disqualifying some athletes in some races leading up to London. So we're actually getting disqualified during the race. And that was one of my biggest fears in London 2012, was being disqualified for, you know, the strapping having moved during the race. Inevitably, as you're putting a lot of pressure through those straps, and, you know, the way that FISA have moved, they've done away with that. And it might be something that they need to review, you know, in line with making it, you know, more inclusive. But yeah, we're really seeing a real spread of the event across some of the athletes, and, you know, and you look at those athletes in the B finals. I actually got up to watch the B finals, and it, you know, it's a huge respect to all the athletes that have managed to qualify, and you know, you look at some of those athletes in the B finals as well, and yes, slower, but nevertheless, you know, incredible athletes as well, and, you know, it's huge respect for them for their journeys.
So Naomi, just before we move on to the gold medal performances, I think it is worth noting that we haven't had a British entry in this PR1 women's single scull, despite having the Olympic champion in 2016. So what more do you think can be done to ensure that we've got the correct pathways in place, the correct talent IDs, to ensure that we can have as much representation as possible across the Paralympic boat categories?
Well, you know, the pathway into rowing and para rowing and adaptive rowing is really has stepped on sort of leaps and bounds in the last few years. I know you had Bruce Lynn on the other day, who was talking about his work at Marlow Rowing Club, and we know that there is a woman out there who is going to be Paralympic champion, maybe Paris, maybe beyond. We've just got to find her. So, you know, it's just a call out to anybody who fancies getting in a boat, giving it a go. You know, somebody who likes to work hard, who likes to perform, who likes a bit of pressure, you know, just make sure you make the phone calls and find out where you can at least give it a go. We're just recruiting, really, to get that seat filled, because we definitely want to be able to continue what we started, and being so strong across all categories for so long. We definitely want to keep that, and it would be great in Paris to have all 4 boat classes with a British athlete in it. But the pathway is there. It's just a question of people keeping their eyes and ears open, and seeing who might fit the bill. Somebody with a long reach, with a good work ethic, and who wants to be on that stage.
Absolutely. So Annamarie, if we turn our attention now to the first of 2 gold medals, in the PR2 mixed double sculls for Lauren Rolls and the birthday boy Lawrence Whitley. What a great way, first of all, for Lawrence to celebrate his birthday with an Olympic gold medal, but an outstanding performance from the 2 of them defending their Olympic crown they won in Rio.
It was amazing, wasn't it? I mean, I was a little bit taken aback when they were so far back off the starts. First of all, you're always nervous and always thinking, oh, don't lose contact. But they're so professional about it. They're so experienced, and they're so cool and calm in that situation. And they just did what they do best. They rode beautifully, really nice and long, great rhythm, and just slowly by the 500-meter mark or so were just, beginning to cruise through. So I thought they did brilliantly. I remember Lauren at Rio when she was really new and fresh and excited to this, and it's fantastic to see her maturing both physically and tactically in the boat as well. And it was a perfect race. They didn't let anyone phase them. They rode really well, I think, compared to, look at the way the Chinese were rowing. They rode beautifully, nice and strong, great catches together, and just cruised through.
I think one of the things that was really important that Lauren said after, and Lawrence said after the race, was that the trust in what they've done, the trust in their training, and the trust in each other. And they've both, had setbacks and problems over the last couple of years, and they've always been there. They've got each other's back. They are there for each other all the time. And yet, whilst they might sometimes irritate each other, wind each other up and not get on, they do when it counts. And I think it's that trust. And the other thing that I think Lauren said was it's patience, just patience in the race, and patience sitting there knowing what they can do, and just making sure that they change gear at the right point. I think was the key to that. It's just gorgeous to watch. Absolutely stunning race.
I think, Martin, as has been alluded to, it says a huge amount about their character and their perseverance when it comes to racing. To be a length down in any boat class or any race, I think is always, it's not ideal. It's not where you'd want to be. But I think has been alluded to be able to row through the field like that was beautiful. It was outstanding rowing.
Yes, it's almost that things that strong are forged under great pressure. And Lauren in particular has spoken out about her mental health issues, and took a couple of years away from top level competition. And I think that it's the fact that they've struggled together and been together through all that. And they're also saying through the last 6 months of having to isolate from their families, not seeing the families since Christmas. Because they were so keen to stay in the team bubble. That's made a really strong team, and as Naomi says, not just the team on the water, but the support there as well. Their coach Tom Dyson and all the support staff. It's something that everybody can really believe in, and they knew that they would be down, and they knew that they would come through, and that was fine, and that's a really good place to be in.
So, Tom, if we turn our attention now to the second gold medal for the GB para rowing team, the PR3 mixed coxed four, now unbeaten for 11 years. They've been going on for it. I don't really know where to start with this crew. It's just brilliant. It's just sublime. The dominance that this crew has had. Obviously, Naomi, you've been a part of this dominance, this legacy as well. So we'll hear from you just momentarily. But Tom, where do you start?
Yeah, this is not enough superlatives. I mean, we've seen them really dominate from sort of 2010 onwards. It's been sort of a decade or so of dominance, and GB have always had a history of being very, very strong in the event, as Naomi I'm sure will say, and pay testament to. But it's it's just incredible to see that they've had a change in personnel since Rio. They've really built that crew around James Fox and had some newcomers come in. and they've shown they've all stepped up to the level, and not only stepped up, but able to move the event on as well. We've seen, you know, a real challenge coming from USA this last year, and you know, GB just, you know, they've put themselves in a position where they're just almost untouchable. I know that just behind the scenes just how hard they've worked with Coach Nick Baker to put themselves in that position. It probably looks easy for people watching, but you know, I know, you know, just how much hard work they've put in, and just, you know, to make themselves work as a crew together as well. It was just incredible to watch. So, you know, they deserve absolutely every moment of enjoyment and celebration they get after that race. It's just incredible performance.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal thing to watch. You know, winning a Paralympic final with 10 seconds plus on the silver medal, that's outstanding, absolutely outstanding. And the event has gone from through so many, I suppose, iterations since 2004, 2003, 4, and the quality, the standard of it is just, well, it is hard to describe, as Tom said, but you know, the commitment of the athletes and what's been put in there. What I think also what is lovely is you can see a certain style and a certain way of rowing that actually comes across that Tom Dyson and Nick Baker have really done with all their athletes, and there is a certain sort of, I don't know, there's a certain sort of punch to the British rowing style in the Paralympics that sort of stands out for me. The way that they're just so patient around that back end in all the crews, but especially in the 4, that patience and being really organised and just separating out their stroke and just getting on it so sharp at the front end. Just watching that technique is absolutely gorgeous. But yeah, I'm just really proud of them all. I got a little bit tearful watching them up on that podium this morning, thinking of how it feels to be there, and also knowing what all of them as a squad have been through in the last 18 months, what everyone in the world's been through in the last 18 months, but how they've then stepped up and changed their training where they needed to, and adapted it and tweaked it where they needed to, and still being able to perform at that level is just phenomenal.
And Annamarie, obviously with this 4, we have wins just racked up and racked up and racked up. How much pressure, I guess, did that put on the Paris squad going forward, or those heading on to Los Angeles to continue to produce excellence? Or is it just creating a culture creating a culture of success, which ultimately just breeds success, which is the more important thing?
Well, you know, it could do either, couldn't it? It could add pressure, or it could give them confidence. And I think you've got to use it. It's all about how you use the information and the experience you've got and drive that in a positive way. And I think that's one thing that Tom and Nick, the 2 coaches of the British Paralympic team, do in rowing, is that they build on it in a really positive way. I think it does put expectation on them. The US crew would have really fancied their chances when they got off the start there, but you know, if you look at the way the British team were rowing, the crew were rowing, they rowed the boat so beautifully that they just, you know, they were able to take it through, and they had that confidence, and Naomi talked about trust earlier on. So I think they've done phenomenally well. And it, you know, the event has moved on, and the athletes, and when we talk about dominance since 2010, but we've had so many athletes, and I don't know how many athletes have rowed in that crew, but so many athletes have been through that boat. It isn't about a British crew having dominance. It's about an enormous number of British athletes who've been experiencing that sort of culture and training and success over those years. It's given us a really fantastic legacy, and they've been relatively high profile because they've won gold medals. And I really hope this is the first year we've properly had para rowing broadcast at the games. And we forget sometimes, came out of 2012. I mean, there were no moving pictures of the 2012 4 winning their gold medal because you know, the footage wasn't kept. It was broadcast on the screens, but it was never televised. The Rio finals were done on a decision the night before, with 24 hours to go, the decision to broadcast those live. This is the first time we've had heats and reps, and everybody's known that they can watch this. So the impact this can have on you know, other people who would love to come forward and love to be part of the rowing team and give it a go can be enormous, if we're ready for it and we're ready to signpost them to the likes of Marlow and Guildford and other clubs where there are programs and where there's capacity for them to people to train. So I think that they will revel in this gold medal. They hugely deserve it. They've been a fantastic crew. They've been wonderful throughout the campaign, and I really hope that this has a massive impact for British para rowing, but also for adaptive rowing and you know, mixed ability rowing throughout the country.
One thing that Ollie said after the race today about the pressure of knowing the kind of the history of the boat is that he said it helps because we know where we need to be. You're not going to sort of enter into this world unless you know that you have to be that good and you have to work that hard to get to that place. And I thought it was a really interesting thing. So as Annamarie said, the way that Nick and Tom frame, you know, the past success of the four is really good for the athletes. They're looking at what they want to achieve and need to achieve and the standard they need to be at, rather than looking at it as something that's unachievable and scary. You know, it's fantastic.
Yes, it really is. It's been a hugely successful Paralympic Games. The GB para rowing team, 2 gold medals and a 5th place performance is an outstanding set of results. And I know, looking at Twitter and seeing everyone up online following the racing in the middle of the night, the whole country was incredibly proud of the results that this para rowing team has put together. But that'll bring an end to this para rowing finals debrief. My huge thank you to Martin, to Naomi, to Tom and Annamarie for joining me to run through all the action we've had in the finals out in Tokyo. Thank you very much to everyone who has listened to us and watched these debriefs over the Paralympic Games and over the Olympic Games as well. From all of us at Junior Rowing News and British Rowing, we hope you've enjoyed the content, and stay tuned for the next instalment of the debrief.